Okay, I think I'll start with Waqas. We have here a, a fairly educated audience. So, but still, if you could start with, giving a background on what this whole blockchain is before we start on the, the real technical questions. So if you can just give a background.
Sure. Thank you very much, Waqas. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So the classic definition of blockchain is that it's an immutable, decentralized database in a peer-to-peer network, basically governed through smart contracts. But I'm sure none of that actually, translates into actual English language. So I'll break it down for you. So since the morning sessions, you all have been hearing the great effort that is being put into automating a particular organization, a bank for its customers, or a fintech for its customer. And this is what automation has been about for the past 30 or so years, where organizations have spent a lot of time, energy, money on coming up with cutting-edge tech for themselves internally or for their customers. But there's been a big lacking in the industry, which is of industry players, and oftentimes competing industry players, collaborating for the bigger good, or to use collective wisdom of exchanging data, sharing data. And this is a problem that blockchain solves, basically. So typically, over the past 20, 30 years, what we've seen is that at best, organizations exchange data with one another. They say, I'll send you a file, you send me a file, then it got down to, messages being exchanged, and now we are in the age of APIs, apparently. And oftentimes, these organizations don't even share data among one another. Somebody in the center, like a bureau or SWIFT in the international remittances, come and say, hey, I'm big enough, I'm trustworthy enough, give me your data and your information, and I'll pass it on to whoever else is on the other side. And the third problem is that when these organizations exchange data, they have their own view of the world. If there's an IBFT transaction between bank A and bank B, there is data that's flown between two banks, but both of them are looking into their respective ledgers or their core banking systems, and they're never sure if their positions actually match. And what they oftentimes end up doing is, they say, why don't you send me your end-of-day file, and I'll send you my end-of-day file, and let's reconcile. So these are the 2-3 problems: lack of trust, and hence an addition of a central entity, and essentially no graceful platform for organizations to exchange information, which blockchain solves. So blockchain is an inter-organization workflow or glue where multiple organizations connect together through a peer-to-peer network, and they all have the same view of information. And the workflows between these organizations are actually governed through something that's called a smart contract, which means these are self-regulated network. Once something has been agreed to be done on the network, it gets done. You don't need a central entity. So this is, in a nutshell, what blockchain is. And there are obviously many use cases and efficacies. So one thing that I'd like to clarify is that there's a whole crypto side of blockchains, which I've not touched upon because that's probably not our topic of discussion today. But in the realm of enterprises and businesses, this is what blockchain is. It's a decentralized network of trust between between different entities.
Thank you. My next question is to Amin. If you could tell me what role do you think blockchain technology can potentially play in Pakistan, in a place like Pakistan?
Thank you very much. I think since the morning we've heard a lot of adjectives and buzzwords like AI, ML, blockchain, etc. So my purpose is that I conversation to try and keep it as simple as possible for the average listener across the board. So blockchain, just like abhi baat kari Waqas ne, so blockchain in its core means the decentralized residency of the data. कि आज अगर हम banks की अगर example लेते हैं, so you know, or any entity for that matter, the data resides in a central repository. So in blockchain, that ownership is not central; it's decentralized. उसकी multiple उसकी nodes होती हैं. Now, what you specifically asked me, I mean, is technical explanation के अंदर, how does it stand to benefit? So it's not just the financial sector as well, because blockchain has got multiple advantages in terms of everyday application. I'll give you a very simple example, you know, in daily life. So healthcare sector is one of the most important areas where, or which can benefit from blockchain. Uski example that all of us sitting in the audience, at some point in time, we have gone for, let's say, our blood work, blood tests, etc., or, you know, we have accompanied somebody who actually has got a healthcare file at any hospital. So the problem right now is that you as a patient or you as an individual do not own that data. Your own data is captive by that hospital or that entity. So what blockchain will do in the future is that you, across all the networks, you will have the access and ownership of your own data. So this is just one example. You know, there are multiple examples or use cases for blockchain that even in Pakistan, for that matter, like healthcare is one of the most underserved areas. So blockchain, I was speaking earlier to somebody from AKU. So one of the biggest problems in Pakistan is about data sharing. So if you look across Indus Hospital, AKU, all the other big hospitals, so there is no overlap or overarching data sharing. Everybody is secretive about their data. So what blockchain will do is remove all those barriers. So the ownership of data will become common, and that data sharing will lead to AI-based solutions for healthcare, and you'll be able to even the prognosis can be based on culture or community-based diseases for that matter. So it's the artificial intelligence which should be based on the access of the record which is available out there.
Anything, specific to banking industry, what potential, uses and how it could be, affect the banking industry in Pakistan?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key areas is what you are spearheading yourself, sir, the e-KYC part of it. But even beyond that, in simple daily life, the banks, one of the biggest problems or challenges being faced by the banks right now is the data secrecy, is about the losses in terms of customer data hacking or in terms of fraud transactions. So what blockchain will do is it will create that additional layer which will prevent the hackers from exploiting the vulnerabilities. Because right now, I don't want to name any entities, but some years ago, there were a couple of banks who actually were hacked or the data was compromised. The perspective is that there's a central pool or there's a central residency of data. So what blockchain does is there's no central pool or there's no central single point of failure. So since the data is spread across multiple nodes across the network, so the hackers will not be able to exploit or hack into that data network. So in simple terms, blockchain will, to a great extent, help prevent fraudulent transactions.
Thank you. My next question is to Shahzad Ishaq. And Shahzad, has blockchain technology so far been able to deliver in its promise for the banking industry in Pakistan? Or
Thank you, Yawasab. We've been discussing since this morning the cultural side of the transformation and the evolution of the future. So that remains at the very core of whatever implementations that will be done or are to be done. Say blockchain is a case in point, or it's also called distributed ledger technology. Recently, I've come across at least one bank, which is JP Morgan, their platform called Onyx, which is all about international payments and remittances and B2B and B2C payments. They tell their story, how they have scaled it up from just 3-4 customers to, say, more than 24 customers right now on that platform. And the throughput on that platform has already gone into a few $1 billion. So that's one case in point where there has been a scale-up achieved. And as far as our country is concerned, you and I had a conversation back in the day over a coffee. The e-KYC I think it's in our context, in our market, in our environment, it's an extremely important case to be tested, which is going to be tested. And the underlying notions are those of transparency, that of uniformity of the data, the standardization, which we discussed is very difficult because different financial institutions record same things in different ways. So, arriving at that minimum common agenda. So that will happen with this kind of technology. And then, also to prevent what we call the risks of terrorism financing and anti-money laundering. So, this is a litmus test that Pakistan market is doing, and it's a big one. All leading banks are supporting it. The Pakistan Banks Association and the State Bank of Pakistan are absolutely behind it. If it comes of age, I think it will be tip of the iceberg. The potential of this technology is immense. We also discussed your struggle with the banking executives and the acceptance that some have to change while others are doing it better than others. So the cultural side of it. So all in all, I think whether these are smart contracts related to trade or contracts related to payments or contracts related to other kinds of transactions, corporate banking, immense value to be garnered out of it. But it is a matter of time and it is a matter of acceptance. We are headed in the right direction. Once we scale the first one, that's where we really kick it off.
Thanks. Khurram, what are some of the notable global and regional success stories and failures as far as blockchain is concerned?
Thank you, Yavar I think a couple of things Shehzad Ishaq already has said. When we were working on this eKYC platform also. So this itself is a big success story because we reviewed Singapore case, India, and some of the other markets. We identified that it is only Bahrain who has actually gone live with the real, blockchain-based network, and they are getting the benefit of that. Whereas we checked some of the other markets, they were facing challenges and all that. Trade is one example, Trade Connect. Mashriq Bank is also participant in UAE. 19 banks, and they're processing good 30 to 50,000 invoices a month. Bahrain KYC I discussed. Ripple is one classic example. I was previously part of Standard Chartered, and they also venture with that. Ripple was also meant to be alternate to SWIFT, and they are also doing great. So they are very good success stories also. Having said that, as Shehzad Sahab said, and you also know how much struggle we did when we were doing analysis for the right solution and all that. Pakistan banking industry at this moment has not adopted any of the solution. Let's call a spade a spade. Good thing with KYC platform, if we get success in that case, is that this platform we will be able to use it for other use cases also, right? And this can be a classic start, right? What will be the key to success? I think more effective in terms of cost and efficiency, secured, and trust. And this is something which is the primary claim of blockchain technologies. So I would request everybody who can help in adopting this thing. Initially, definitely there will be cases, but we should go for that. And to be honest, our first time, of course, working in a digital bank, but now I am realizing that majority of our processes which we claim that these are automated, actually are not fully automated. Majority of them are semi-automated. And this is something which we are trying to crack, right? Yeah. Many physical verifications happen in today banking industry, which can be easily replaced with if we go with blockchain-based solutions and all that. So huge opportunity. Industry is available. Our neighbor UAE has many use cases. Middle East itself, we have a couple of one. So I think high time for Pakistani banking industry to move on, with this thing.
Thanks. I mean, what do you think, what should the banking industry do to, to adopt this technology, and what is required now for the banking industry? Um,
Yeah, Sahib, I think initially the most important part is that the infrastructure needs to be there. So although PB has taken lead in terms of creating that first step, so the proof of the pudding lies in the eating part of it. So I guess banks are a bit reluctant in adopting new technology, especially since we're talking about even globally, blockchain is a new tech by itself. So eKYC in Pakistan could be a starting point. Like I mentioned, one of the most or the more bigger cases for Pakistan could be the data secrecy. Traceability, transparency, and security. These are the three elements of blockchain. So the traceability part of it, in simple terms, that blockchain is like the GPS of the transaction world. It not only prevents that AML, it also creates a security, it also saves the time. So in Pakistan, for the banks to adopt it, I believe that platform needs to be laid out, the regulation need to be laid out. So that's the starting point for this entire piece altogether.
yeah.
So perfectly responded. But I think normally, so I've also worked for 20 years in technology in a bank, right? I've realized this. We always have our plates full for so many deliveries and all that. It is something which is a regulatory mandate which push us, to be honest, right? The serious regulatory sponsorship will add a good value in my view, right? And a sense of ownership, if we are able to get out of people's busy schedule and really present what exactly is the solution, it is equally secure and all that. When we were analyzing, we also considered that. But if we get a good sponsorship from regulator, if we get a good sponsorship from the banks itself, will be an amazing thing, yeah.
Waqas, has the blockchain technology, so far been able to deliver on its promise? The question to you now. I know I've asked this question, earlier also, but what is your take on it?
So I can't take a global view, but I'll take a regional view. And I can tell you that, I mean, Avanza, the company that I represent, we've done 20 plus blockchain implementations in the region, where each implementation is a national or a city scale network solving a very specific problem. And the kind of projects that we do not happen by accident. They're tied up with a 2030, 2050 vision of a country. If a country wants to become a commerce hub, if a country wants to become an e-commerce hub, if they want to become a tourist hub. So the kind of problems that you solve through a technology like blockchain have to be really big problems. Like I said, you don't implement blockchain for the automation of one particular organization. You implement blockchain to move a sector 10x, to achieve a goal. That is why these projects are few. You can't have volumes of blockchain projects, but when done right, they have delivered. But you need to have the right recipe. And I keep telling people, the biggest challenge in doing blockchain projects is not technology; it's lobbying.
Yeah.
Having multiple organizations sit across a table, and competing organizations, mind you, to solve a problem is challenging. I mean, we are doing a project with 30 banks, with you. Try arranging a meeting, with 30 banks and their representatives. So those are the challenges, but when done right, when governance model is in place, when you have a very strong championing entity, when there's enough incentive for the participating entities to join the platform, you'll find that you have a good mix and the right recipe, and then we see success. So yes, when done rightly, blockchain is delivered on its promise.
I agree, and the experience that you and I have gone through, and I would like to add here is that once the connectivity between banks is established, this is going to be a an amazing thing, that to have all the banks in Pakistan connected through blockchain, and eKYC is just one use case. So there, there's so many other use cases, as Amin just said. There's so many other use cases.
So if I can add to that. So essentially what we're doing is we're building a highway to connect all the banks without a central entity in the middle. So all the banks connected with one another in a self-regulated, secure, immutable network. And the first kind of traffic that we're moving is eKYC. But then we have a long way to go of trade finance, and eventually in our lifetime, if we can have digital checks, we could even have check clearing on blockchain, and there are many more use cases. So we see a blockchain network of banks as a very valuable financial asset for a country, which could be repurposed for a lot of problems at an industry level.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've had, a very fruitful discussion.